Manhood, brought to you in part by Lucozade and Solomon's Bespoke.
This is Manhood, and I'm delighted that you have joined us once again. The topic today is such a big one. It's such a present one among all of us, both men and women. But today we're going to focus specifically on men, and the topic is men and mental health. What is mental health? Well, here we go. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, act, and relate to others at work and in life. So basically, everything, all-encompassing. So to kick this topic off, we've done something that we haven't done all season, but I'm delighted to have the presence of this particular doctor. So to my right, Johanse Iodike, behavior change consultant. To his right, Dr. Keisha Lewis, general manager, mental health services, Northwest Regional Health Authority. Delighted to have you.
Thank you.
And to her right, Rishi Ram, morning show host on Sangeet, our brother sister station. I mean, what would
Sister
be
station.
Sister station here at Guardian Media Limited. So, mental health. There's so many sides to it. Everything, how you behave, positive, negative, how you relate to everything.
Well, let me give you a simplified definition for mental health. Is the quality of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior in relation to your environment. And the environment could be physical, it could be family, it could be school, it could be any single thing. But it's inequality because if you're not able to manage, or if your thoughts, feelings, or actions bring detrimental results to you based on the environment, then I would say the quality of your mental health is decreased. What do you think about that?
I just want to thank you for the clarification on that, because one thing, as we always know, a lot of times the names, the phrases, there's terms bandied about, and then when you really look at the dictionary meaning or the origin of some of these phrases, it's never what we really think it is, and that's another one. Because when I think mental health, initially before the phrase was really coined, and we have all this promotion and campaigns around it, I initially think crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes.
The first thing when someone says mental health, you're mental, it's immediately something.
You think St. Anne's.
St. Anne's.
That is
And
the one.
that's where Keisha comes
Yes.
in. Part of your portfolio is you are the head of St. Anne's Hospital. It falls under there. And we're also here today to debunk some of the myths around St. Anne's Hospital and mental health in particular.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for that, adding that part of the definition. So, and at mental health services, one of the things we use as a marker really is your mental well-being and able to manage with the day-to-day stresses of life. That is what really, determines a good mental health or a not good mental health. Yes, St. Anne's Hospital, and perhaps we should talk about stigma and discrimination and what that means. But St. Anne's Hospital, has been around for over 100 years. It was actually opened in 1908, so 117 years to be exact. So it's moved from, asylum.
That is the word, asylum.
Asylum.
Right.
And again, you part of when we have these off-camera conversations, I always like Keisha to bring it to the fore so that everyone knows. And one of our conversations is Keisha told me, I always thought it was a converted hospital, or like for like you go to Shaka Shikar in these places, and it was initially for leprosy, and there are myths around those things, but some of it is accurate. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And in this case, you mentioned to me, it was actually built for the
Yes.
purpose which it
And
holds.
hence the beautiful architecture, if you've
Yeah.
ever been there, the
Yeah.
Victorian architecture.
I
But
don't.
You don't know. You
I've
haven't been.
never been. I've never been a guest. No.
But let me just
Or
jump in.
resident.
I will tell you, the first time I remember when I came home from university and I was looking for job opportunities. And St. Anne's was one of the places I
Yes.
went, right? And I remember I was frightened.
Yeah.
Right? After a big man come, I was 29 or something like
Yes,
that, right?
yes.
And at the time I came home, I didn't have a kind of thing, so I traveled to St. Anne's.
Yeah.
And I remember when I reached in front, my heart was beating. And I was like, why? Why am I, quote unquote, afraid or have some sort of anxiety and not going to interact with the patients? Right? And I've never been, but it's based on the stigma.
And the stories you've
from a
heard.
child, hearing about
Yeah,
St.
you wanna
Anne's,
deal with no madman.
waiters
Yeah,
about St.
yeah.
Anne's, right?
Yeah.
No, I deal with quote unquote mad people before, but I mean, it's St. Anne's. If you understand
Yeah, yeah,
what I'm saying, you
that's-
feel,
You know for
feel that,
sure
no?
the mad people there.
And,
Mad people there,
and
you
I
want to do
could,
that.
I could concur with that. When I entered St. Anne's, I was 18 years old. I applied to do nursing. And the cohort for general nursing was filled at that time. So they said, well, there was spaces in psychiatric nursing. So I thought, well, why wait a whole year? Just join psychiatric nursing. It's not what I wanted to do initially. And I remember coming home and saying to my parents, oh, well, I got accepted in psychiatric nursing. What, St. Anne's Hospital? You're not going there? Right? You're 18 years old. You know, the perception in your head, to say the least, it was the best decision I've ever made.
So let's use. I mean, we are going to delve and have a real deep conversation about mental health and the stigmas with that, and the fact that it's mental health is simply your health and wellness and your mental state. But I want to specifically talk a bit about the stigmas in St. Anne's, because let's face it, it is the elephant in the room, and people
Yes.
have. So the part of growing up is for mad people. So is it that we have to sort of roll that back without understanding that it's not, one, we shouldn't be saying people are mad.
Or
they may
crazy.
or crazy. So that's the first
No,
thing.
I think you could say that,
No, you can't
Because,
say
no,
that.
because let me tell you why. You remember, I believe in honesty. I believe people are broken. They are broken people. Broken in the sense that, well, they're broken in your head, where you're not functioning properly, you're not functioning as a normal human being. They can't sit here and have a conversation like us, or maybe they could, but they will just go off on a different tangent. They will just do something else. So I believe they're broken. The other aspect of it is that, mental health these days, I think it's just you not being able to handle a particular challenge or handle a particular situation. But the initial purpose of the hospital, really and truly, is to handle the broken ones. House the broken ones. Keep the broken
but
ones.
do we have to give them that title of mad or crazy?
It
as
have to.
opposed
But-
first, because Rishi, I'm real glad you say that, because we generally, we call something people mad or crazy, or something mad or crazy, when we don't understand it.
Exactly.
So it mad or crazy to us, because why he or she do that? Why it happens so? So let's say from a layman's point of view, if I see something and I don't understand it, I will say that mad or she mad. But then as we go into medical and clinical, then there's an explanation. So this person reacted this way because they have schizophrenia. This person reacted this way because they're depressed. This person reacted this way because of something else. But mad and crazy is what we use when we don't understand.
Don't understand. And as I like my quotes, and Sadhguru had said, seek to understand before you seek to be understood.
Yes.
And I really want to go back to, because that mad and crazy was just one of the things that I wanted to say that we should not do.
I want to ask you, Doctor, a
but-
question though.
But I want to get into an understanding first, Rishi, of what the hospital, let's debunk that first, that they're clearly different levels of persons who enter St. Anne's Hospital, and not everyone there.
Definitely. And
Is what mad?
It's what
Well, no, but not everyone there
but
is.
and Rishi used the term broken, but
Yeah.
You gotta
you
find
see,
out what
and
break-
but
what
when
break them
when you
and
use
where
St.
they-
Anne's Hospital and the term mental health, you think about the extreme end of the. Remember, mental health is on a continuum. Any one of us here might be mentally broken, but it is how we manage that, and that is called resilience, and we will talk about that
Right.
at a later stage.
And you can't
But-
go to St. Anne's Hospital hospital for treatment.
Definitely.
As-
So, and let me just say that there are, because we still might have the idea that, people get tied up with a rope or, or whatever in your trunk and they get dropped off in St. Anne's Hospital.
So there's no white jacket or
That does
padded
not
room.
happen, no, right? So there are 6 different ways in which you can be admitted to St. Anne's Hospital. One is voluntary. Rishi, you can come and say, I feeling stressed out, I need a time out, these are the things that are happening in my life, I recognize, and I'm able to give that consent, and we sign you in voluntary. You might be able to leave.
Might be ridiculous, but
Right?
You
So
hear that last
voluntary-
part? Right?
You might be able to leave.
We might have the next morning on the radio show. We have an absence.
So there's voluntary, there's an urgent admission, right, where we feel as though an intervention needs to be made. There is medically recommended, where 2 independent doctors recommend that this person be admitted for a period of assessment. There is by order of the Minister of National Security. So if you are in prison and they realize that you need some mental health intervention, by an order of the Minister of National Security, you can be transferred to St. Anne's Hospital for treatment. Okay. There is also an application of the mental health officer. So the community mental health nurse may observe somebody in a public space. It happens all the time with homeless persons, street dwellers, and they realize they either threat to themselves or somebody else, so they bring them in for admission. And the last one, which the public may be familiar with, is by court order. So the court, magistrates court, high court, children's court, family court, may order you for a period of 14 days at a time to be assessed. So those are the ways, and there are...
What is the correct word? Not mad or crazy. What is the
a person
accepted word?
experiencing mental distress.
Mental distress. There
Right?
you go, Rishi.
A person experiencing mental distress,
She laughed.
right? You're not crazy. You're not, and even my children home know not to use the word crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
so
So,
that's a derogatory term.
it's not derogatory, but it invokes in us,
It's a loaded word,
is a loaded
It's
word.
a load of
right?
And this is where, the understanding comes and the stigma around mental illness. Because stigma and discrimination sometimes are used interchangeably, but they are 2 different things.
Okay.
They are 2 different things. And stigma is something that is personal to each one of us. It is how we feel about something. And it is intangible, so it makes it very difficult to measure, right? You could ask me, Rishi, whatever you want on a questionnaire to gauge how I feel about something. You will never know the true response. You will never know how I truly feel about it. That is what stigma is.
So this stigma about women driving men mad.
Or the other way around. Right?
I mean, it's manhood. We throw it out there.
Yeah.
We want to tie it back into men and men specifically and mental health. I mean, because mental distress can occur in both men and women.
Yeah.
Right? But I would assume, and this is what we're here to have a discussion about, the triggers for those things, are they all the same? Or are they different in terms of the pressures men may feel to, say, provide? I read up to yesterday, I saw it pop up again on my Instagram, where it spoke about love and that women and children can be loved unconditionally. Men are conditional based on their level to provide.
Yeah.
Yes. And that is going back to the societal expectations of men. There are so many expectations, and when those are not met, where does that leave you?
Okay, let me ask a question. I mean, if you have these statistics, the population in St. Anne's Hospital, was percentage men versus women?
It's about 70% men, 30% women. It's always more men than women.
And why is that?
Because of,
Societal pressures?
not even that, because of the health-seeking behaviors of men. We don't tend to, you don't tend to seek help.
Keisha, as you said that, it's everything is serendipitous, because yesterday I was having a conversation, and one of the topics that I said we must speak about It was actually with a senior person at the Ministry of Health. And one of the topics that we were having a discussion as to bring up on manhood at one point is men and healthcare.
Yeah.
Men, and this is something you can speak
men
to.
don't seek health.
They don't seek
healthcare
healthcare,
at all.
and that comes in the same thing that you were mentioning just now. Men are afraid. You're afraid of there's situations now where men are taking medication or doing things in advance, so if you think, for example, you're diabetic, you may start to do all the things that you know you should be doing not to get diabetes. And also in certain cases, people are taking medication ahead of, just out of fear not to find out
Or
the
in
result.
secret.
Or in secret. Just like with cancer, the dreaded C word. And a lot of that, and this is just my understanding or impression, as a man, the fear of not being able, as we spoke about, the condition and your level to provide can then be impacted. You now have to be taken care of. You may lose your job. You may be seen differently in society. You may be seen differently by your spouse or your children. And that innate initial hunter, that's a man, and a woman is a nurturer, so to speak. So to find out that you are now in a weaker form may be one of the reasons why men generally don't seek healthcare, and why when it gets to either the pressures of that mental distress, you now find yourself.
And certainly with mental illness, the big one, what people go say.
There you go.
What people go say.
The same stigma as in, if I'm sick, therefore I'm useless. I can't do anything. Therefore, my worth is lower, which we know cognitively and rationally don't make sense. But as you were also saying, is that a stigma is not necessarily logical. It is a concept or a perception that each person hold, right? And why men also, I think, lie, whether it's to people or to themselves, about health is because, and I could say for me personally, one, and also a lot of the men I deal with, is that the reason why sometimes you're sick is your own negligence. And you don't want to admit that you should have done better. So it's not anybody's fault to know, right? The sugar didn't accidentally come into your body for you to get diabetes.
Well, it's lifestyle diseases.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
NCDs.
Right.
NCDs.
Which means that is my fault. Well, most times,
Correct.
right? Is my fault. So I think it's more less
good.
I'm afraid of
Mental distress.
how I am perceived versus facing the reality that I should have done better.
So before we go to the break, Keisha, you mentioned about, what was the start, 70%?
Yeah, approximately
So-
70-30.
If we just take it on a general, but again, we're talking men and mental health. Are these developed, is this developed mental stress or distress? Or is this something that maybe a chemical imbalance, something that you're born with, that gets worse over time? Or is it, like I said, a woman or something drive the man mad?
No, we have the dreaded biopsychosocial model.
Or if it's fake. Or if it's fake, is there some way that you all could tell if it's fake?
Yes, of course. There are numerous
Because
different,
men can act a rule, eh?
you know,
How people can act a rule real good.
and this is usually what we determine when persons are sent for court orders. You know, is it something mentally? Is it a mental illness? Is it mental strain? Is it mental distress that have caused you to act in such a way that you did not know what you were doing? That is what we determine for court orders.
So that would be the key part there. Not whether it is that you did not know what you were doing. I think that is the point that gets you admitted or not. Because if you knew what you were doing, then you're back in the jail cell. But it's just to say that I was.
Yeah, but that's justifying,
and-
right? That's not justifying.
And that's what.
I did it because I'm mad. I do it because I break.
And that's what you would be there to determine.
Yeah, that's what we determine, and that's what we.
Your get out of jail free card.
No, that's what we, make a recommendation to the court. So based on X, Y, Z, but I don't want to go down into court assessment, right? But going back to your question before the break, it's a combination of your environment, as you Anson said, is a combination of genetics, And it's a combination of your society, those things that shape you, that determine, your resilience or your ability to cope with life stresses. Those are the things that determine your mental well-being. So there are lots of research to say that things like schizophrenia there is a genetic component to it. That doesn't mean that, because my mother had schizophrenia, I'm going to get schizophrenia. Treatment and developments have, advanced over the years. But it is not one thing. It is a combination of things. And Johansen smiling. He knows.
He could smile, and we could find out why he's smiling after the break.
After the break.
We're talking about men and mental health, and I hope by now you understand why we have a woman on the set of Manhood, and very, very knowledgeable about this topic, men and mental health, and one of the taboo topics or phrases or what we hear growing up about St. Anne's and mental health, and we're getting a lot of clarification on more than anything that mental health is simply your state of being as opposed to mental distress, which is a whole other topic. So we take a short break and we come back and we continue to talk about men and mental health.
So welcome back. This is Manhood. Before the break, Robert, we were talking about some of the vulnerabilities for mental health, and we were talking about genetics and genetic vulnerabilities and how that may contribute to, your state of well-being.
Right. One thing, there's a physiological difference between the male and the female brain. Right? This is science. You could Google it. You will see. Woman has more connections between the left and the right side of her brain. That's why generally women could, quote unquote, multitask better. Men, we have more connections in each side of our brain. Right? That's why generally say a man have a one-track mind. Now, I'm setting this premise because doing some years of research, when you look at the stats for autism, 80% are diagnosed male. When you look ADHD, 80%. We just get the stat, 70% of the population in St. Anne's are male. So why? Was the difference? Why disproportionately diagnosed to males? And it's because, and this is a theory I'm working with, which I've seen results, is that because men think differently from women, or our hardware is different, right? A lot of the world is not catered to understanding that. So, and men could relate, and I'm sure in many lives, when a man doing something and somebody comes to talk, you say, just now, let me just finish this first now, right? Why is that? It's because we have less of the capacity to handle many things at the same time. So if a man decides, if he's in the environment, if there's too many things, too much input, a man is not we are not wired to handle so many things.
So if we are one track, it's almost a one-track mind.
Men more thorough.
So therefore, it's easier to go off track.
I will come to that.
We more thorough.
I will come to that because men could do a million things, but we have to do it one at a time. Women could do a million things, and they could do all of them at the same time. But understanding that, and it's not to say one is better than the other, it's understanding the difference in it. So if, as a man, I'll just give you an example, you're in work, and all is concentrated on is work, but your wife or your child call, that immediately interrupts that. And it's not necessarily a saying it's a bad thing, Or it could be, but it interrupts it. So that's why sometimes men don't want to talk to the wife when they're on work, right? Men don't want to talk to the children, but they'll wait till they break. Call me at this time. But so that means I am mentally prepared to stop what I'm doing. Now, many people might understand. So what happened? You ain't missing my what? What happened? Daddy, you don't want to talk to me? No, it's not. Or whole day, you ain't call me, you ain't miss my what? The truth is, he didn't miss you, He wasn't even thinking about you. And that's not a bad thing, because if we go evolutionary, if a man go out to hunt, I can't be thinking about anything else but the hunt, because I might die. But as soon as it die and we put it on me back, then we say, I wonder what my son doing, I wonder what my wife doing.
How would they react when I come home with this big saber-tooth tiger?
Right. So it's a difference, and understanding that difference, and therefore now creating a difference. So let me go quick and then you'll jump in. In a classroom setting, right? If a man has to do one thing at a time, if a teacher come with too many different things, right, then it could overwhelm more versus doing it in a different way. If and at home, how you treat with a boy, you're teaching it the same way as a girl, then you'll get different results. And you think, well, look at your sister, and this is something I hear a lot from parents. Well, look at his sister
Yeah,
XYZ. Why he can't is because it's different.
You know, in this particular segment, and to the manhood virgins, so to speak, on the show, Rishi and Keisha, there's always, I'm reading even this flyer that we have. It was out in the lobby, and you found it, and it was there in plain sight all the time. And again, another survey shows that in education, mass media educational campaigns really reach about 5% of the intended audience. How to really get across to people, like, for example,
Yes.
for healthcare, is one-on-one. It really is educating the counselors or the GPs to really communicate to patients or persons, and that one-on-one is more effective than these mass media campaigns. So here it is, there's a flyer, and again, it took Dr. Lewis to point it out to me, but it says where to find support, and it says talk to someone you trust, reach out to a mental health professional, use available workplace national support services, and there's a number there for those who want to know, EAP 628-2333. And we'll put it up on the screen at the end of the show. But I wanted to say that most persons suffer in silence,
Yes.
right? And therefore, even any of these things, even talking to someone you trust, as a man, the general nature of a man is not to go to your partner, especially with Caribbean men. And we've had so many topics on that where we speak about a man is listening. As I said about Sadhguru, about seek to understand before you seek to be understood. People tend to talk really to find out either gossip or really about what's in it for me.
That's
So-
the thing. I believe that. I believe that
So-
people don't really come out to talk about it because I don't believe they will get a help. I wouldn't come out and say anything because I don't believe you could help me. And one of the big things in Trinidad is that a lot of people suffer from depression,
Yes.
mental
And
illness, as you
anxiety,
say,
Yeah.
because we don't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
I go to a doctor, I go to my medical doctor, and the medical doctor had the slightest clue as to how to help me or send me to somebody. I go to talk to my wife, or I go to talk to auntie down the road, or a partner, a brethren, and he don't even know how to advise me. He go down and talk to my partner and say, hey,
Yeah, that's it. And Rishi,
Yeah, we're going
you
on
know,
with that, man.
you strike something in my thought there, because while we spoke about biological factors, there are some social factors as well that contribute, and we have some cultural impacts here. We have liming drugs and alcohol. Let's talk about that as a coping strategy with men.
So it is a coping mechanism, but it's a counterproductive
Definitely.
coping mechanism. It is
Correct.
basically, it's like cortisol in the body.
Yep.
It serves an initial purpose for
Because
a reason.
alcohol is a depressant.
It's a depressant.
But too much, and the general word of coping means right now is too much to handle. So in the interim, I have this thing. It's not something that's supposed to be long term. So we talk about cultural and social, which I agree with you all is that I have plenty of people, especially because we're from a small society. Right? That, it's almost inevitable, that somebody may find out, unless it is bound by some kind of professional contract or professional organization. Right? Also socially, and this is something I've noticed, we Trinbagonians, we are going to use the word, right? I think we mad, right? Let me tell you why I say that. We
Mentally
Trinbagonians,
distressed.
we love to argue with reality. We don't like to face reality. We like to get vexed with reality. Let me give you an example. Why the sun so hot?
where the rain falling.
Why the rain falling? But it is falling. So instead of facing the reality, why Robert had to be so? So you're questioning reality. Therefore, the emotion you get from it could be useless versus the rain is falling, that is facing reality, which is healthy mental health, and then either pull out my umbrella or go back inside or go home, wherever it is.
And rain could only fall. It doesn't do anything
That's
else.
it. Rain could
Right.
only
You know,
fall,
the
so you
sun
can't
is-
get vexed with rain.
Yeah.
So
The sun is-
we be vexed with things,
Yeah.
and
I'm
instead
glad-
of
I'm glad you
facing
bring
it
up that.
head
I'm glad you
on
bring
now,
up that.
right? So therefore, because we don't face it head on, we develop in society now coping mechanism that now is multi-million-dollar businesses. So alcohol, right? Let me just forget my troubles. So therefore, and one factor of schizophrenia and psychosis is delusion, you know.
Yep.
That's one of the factors to prove.
And hallucinations.
So
Yep.
most Trinidadians, delusion is part of our culture. And if delusion is one of the factors of schizophrenia and mental illness, then a lot of us ill, you know.
But before I take your point, but I just don't want us to go on without the conversation around everything in moderation. So even if liming, alcohol, everybody needs moments of pause.
Okay.
So sometimes, you know, it's like when you write an angry letter, you're out of control, so you need to now get back in control. So you may write something, and they always say, leave it for let it sit for 24 hours, and then come back, and then see if you really want to.
That's what you really wanted to say.
That's really what you want to say. And 9 out of 10 times, you're going to be like, listen, I'm not even bothered by it again. Or you always hear, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, then don't give it 5 minutes. If it's not going to
That
matter
one
in
easier
5,
said than
right?
done.
It is. But I'm saying to you that taking that one drink or going out and taking a lime might give you pause to calm
In
down.
the short term, yeah.
In the short term, than
But do we know when to stop?
this is what I'm saying.
Do
So
we know when to
excess.
stop?
Everything is excess. You might realize, wow, okay, this really helped me out
Yeah.
here. Or
And voice song jump into my head just now. Now I'm drunk in the people fed. I went out, you invite me out for one drink.
And then, Doc, that's
Now
what I'm
I
trying to
drunk
say.
any people
So
fats.
then the use of the alcohol and the use of the narcotics and all these kinds of things is then what breaks the thing in your head that then bring you by you.
It's counterproductive.
well, you don't want to be numb. You don't want to use it to numb yourself. I'm saying to you that where it may work, and I'm talking about my own experience of
Yeah.
being agitated or just needing a break.
Yep.
I might say, let me just step away from this. Let me get more clarity in going and joining a friend or even calling your hand, say, we may say, hey, let's go and grab a beer. But if I'm now using that beer to numb what I'm feeling, that's where I think you're now.
That's where you break.
But that even brings up the fact that of awareness. So you are being aware that you need to step away. Most people not even in that space, so they don't even realize that they're on a downhill.
Yeah, you're aware only after you.
That's it. You're aware only, and
you're at ground
that is the
zero.
thing with coping. To have that awareness of yourself before
Right.
things escalate to the point.
So what are some of the healthy coping mechanisms? And we're not talking about the ones that I would have just read where trying to talk to someone that you trust and mental health professionals. Yes, you can do those things and they do work. We're not trying to put anyone out of business here, but I'm saying that generally, as we've always talked about, the general nature of a man is for many reasons, whether it be that the person you're speaking to is going to disclose what you've said, or judge you, or whatever the case may be, or just being a man where I once saw this clip with Shaquille O'Neal, and he spoke about he never tells his wife anything that's going on with him. He said because her role is to look after the family, to be in a state of comfort, happiness, and low stress, and it is his role as a man to take on that level of stress and shoulder it and not bring it to the home. So, and he's not alone. No man is an island. So I'm saying that I don't have a figure to say how many.
I think, Robert, getting a sense of getting involved in a sense of spirituality, getting spirituality involved in an early state of yourself will let you understand that the use of the alcohol or the use of this or the life challenges, everyday life challenges, because every day we live, we're going to come about challenges. We go to school, we're going to get excessive homework, teacher going to come down on you have a bad shoes, peer pressure. Every single day of your life, every day you get up in the day, you're going to have a pressure in your life. The use of understanding and simplifying life and slowing it down to the point where this challenge that I'm about to face, or every day I'm going to face challenges, I need to slow it down and I need to understand that this challenge is only here and presenting itself to make me stronger. And by encompassing and embracing spirituality early, you had that sense of knowledge to know, well, okay, something, some higher level is making me stronger or presenting me with this challenge to make me stronger for what is to come. So when I go to school and I endure all of this homework and I endure all of this tests and everything, It makes me now stronger for when I pass, when I get the
But
results.
Rishi, you're talking about
the job
go-tos.
place.
You're talking about go-tos, right? And people always say that even when people don't understand things like suicide, how could someone commit suicide? You know, they have
you're
kids.
too weak.
They have kids. So certain people have go-tos that they may say, like you said, spirituality, or there's something that they hold on to, like even in the sad moments or the depressing moments, that you could hold on to a happy moment.
You remember you're always talking about Sadhguru.
So, but I'm saying to you, there must be a point, because 70% in the hospital in this case, that even that go-to, there's a break. Because you might say, this go-to has helped me for 99% of the things that I'm going to encounter, and I could always go back to it. For me, it's I always remember in my saddest moments, this too shall pass. And I always say I'm going to get a tattoo. And that always brings me out of that rut. However, who is to say that at some point there's going to be that one thing that you are blurred,
That
even
tips you
this
over.
that tips you over, that this too shall pass. You can't come back to that at that point, and hence there's suicide.
Going back to coping is, and we term it as preserve and strive. So you preserve yourself, you know, your normal things, sleep, exercise, whatever. But you mentioned about you know, your social relationships, and we say, you know, in mental health services, you have 3 types of friends. You have friends you depend on, you have friends you lime with, and you have a friend you confide in. Now, if you're good enough to find all them things in one person, that's all well and fair. But if you think about it, most of the time, the people you lime with is not the people you confide in.
Mm-hmm. As you're saying that statement, I started to immediately
You
identify,
compartmentalize
surface,
them.
and realize that the person I confide in is not necessarily the person I like.
You were going a bar and drink a beer with.
Exactly.
You know.
I mean, there are one or two that you realize you can do all with, but generally, and I really want to come back to. You know, we are talking about men and mental health, but there's also still so much that I want to understand about St. Anne's Hospital in itself. So to kind of drop certain things in there.
I know we had to go to a break. I just want to answer your question. You had asked about what are some methods we could use to cope, because, you know, sometimes things do work, right? What I've noticed, especially for boys and men, what breeds competency, right? Competency breeds self-esteem.
Yes.
So the more a man could feel competent is the higher self-esteem. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be competent in the thing that he wants immediately, but when you do something. So let me give you an example. Some of the kids I work with, we do simple things like puzzles, well, seemingly simple things, but they can't figure out the puzzles. But if by the end of the session they could figure out the puzzle, they feel confident enough to do something else. So we as men, sometimes a simple thing as movement. If you're not feeling good, you get up and you do something. It could be wash the wares, it could be clean something, it could be just go and do something. And when you do something, you feel it's almost like a momentum. You feel the momentum to do something else. So it don't have to be, even if you don't say a prayer, even if you just get up and you do something, and I've seen that work many times. So I just wanted to add that there before we go to the break.
And just to add to that, Johanse, and I've felt it in my own life, and I've been told it several times, and it might make sense if you think about it specifically when it says when you don't have, give, because someone might immediately say, but if you don't have, how are you giving? So if you don't have all that you want, or you're looking at a particular situation and you still find a way to give to others, to give of yourself in whatever, whether it be philanthropic work, it really helps. It's almost like paying it forward. So in the same way of doing something, you know, when you find yourself in a rut, still be present for someone else. And we're not talking about the science of you can only give what you have, or how can I give 50% if I only have 30.
Well, we always have something. If it's not money, it have time, it have energy, it have effort.
Always
always have something.
Parents is another coping mechanism. Huh? Parents. I think parents on the both ends of the spectrum. Parents can be the cause,
or a stressor,
or your breakage. Parent can be the cause of your breakage because you might bring him up a little too sheltered and he can't cope with anything at all. Or depending on how you bring him up, he will be able to be strong enough to cope with whatever comes along.
Well, the show can cope if we do go to a break.
Hey, this is Rishi, and I'm not mad. I good. This is Manhood. Welcome back to the show, man. Robert, let me get back to it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I mean, we're not sitting here holier than thou, have it all together. We've all experienced a moment in our own lives where we thought we were going through mental distress.
Yes, I agree, Robert. And, even every single morning on your commute, traffic is a sense of mental distress, right? But none
But if you listen to my morning show, I feel able to get straight.
Good one, good one.
right?
Good, I like that.
A good
I like
plug,
that.
good plug. But can any of us really say that there's been a day that, we have gone through where our mental health hasn't affected our day?
You mean
Think
negatively?
about negatively.
You could say it, but you'll be lying.
You'll be lying. And, one thing really stands out to me where I felt, I could have easily been tipped over to the other side. You see, when I had my first baby, I was alone. I was abroad, no family. And you're excited for 9 months. And then the reality of no sleep and this little thing just crying all the time. I started to feel what postnatal depression was, to be honest. It was a very, very, very difficult time.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up, even as a woman, because believe it or not, sometimes when even people come to me, sometimes people think a man can't do postpartum depression.
That is not
but
true.
some of the things I've heard women
Yep.
say is that they get depressed because they're afraid to say what they want to say, because how I just make a child, how I could say I find the baby annoying, how I could say anything
Exactly.
that
Like,
could
what have I
seemingly
done?
seem bad, so they keep everything inside. Right, which of course we're talking about for both men and
Yeah,
women,
yeah.
keeping things inside. So I'm glad you just mentioned that for female listeners.
And I would like to. I mean, I have so many stories about moments. I mean, we've had persons on this show who have come to me afterwards and said basically how the show really gave them perspective, and they shared with me about the many moments they may have had of literally attempting suicide.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about attempted like they felt depressed and they went for a drive. I'm talking about where in certain instances
They made peace.
What they did
Yeah.
didn't work. Like they
Yeah.
did it, and it so happened that God had another plan for them, right? And they're still here. And I must say that I've had moments, and as I've said, this too shall pass has come to mind, where based on the possibility of financial ruin,
Yeah.
the possibility of decisions of a divorce,
Yeah.
the pain that is. I mean, the person is still present, and you to come to terms with a person you may have had on a pedestal, and they're still moving on, and men size up other men, and
Exactly,
you're looking
yeah.
at that, and you're going through all of these things. How you sit with yourself, and you can't speak to anybody really. I mean, you can, but you don't, and yet still those persons I'm speaking about are still here. I am still here, and one of the things, even when I had my when we had our son,
Yeah.
my wife travels and as a chef, and I'm here with this boy that I'm so excited to have. I always wanted a child, and I now have
Yeah.
I now have the responsibility. But when you're now literally responsible, there's no palming off or and
Yeah,
shaking and
yeah,
having that
yeah.
moment. Like the favorite aunt. Oh, this
Yeah.
like, and they play with for 5
can't get
minutes.
back that
You
at
can't
You are
get
now
back that
feeding,
at
changing
all.
pampers, diaper rash,
Yep.
the crying, not understanding. And one of the things that I battle with is that I saw people around me, other fathers, who had, would speak to the mother's tummy and have all their communication. And I said, what is wrong with me? I can't communicate with my child. Like, what is wrong? Like, where is this natural thing you keep hearing about? This veil is going to be removed and everything, the world is going to change. I knew I loved my
Yes.
son, but I could not communicate. And there was this one instance where I had to travel to Bermuda to meet her. And I took him, and thank God for the flight attendants and so on, because he screamed, and of course it was discomfort. But part of my understanding now is that when I see someone that I love in discomfort, it's almost you go into initial, you don't want them to be in discomfort. It's like, if you can't help, it almost drives me mad.
Yeah.
That I don't know what's wrong. I don't want to see you in pain, and therefore I'm driving myself mad. And I'm almost for a moment, Johansson, this is really crazy in many ways. You're almost in denial. You're almost in denial of what is happening, because or you want to ignore it. Like if my son's in pain, like he's sick, it's like he's not really that sick,
But
because
that's a normal
I
reaction,
don't want
right?
it to happen. But I'm saying all this to say that in one of the instances when I got to Bermuda, he was just screaming, and one of the pilots who was traveling as well, stayed in the same residence, gave me a tip. But at that point, I told him at that point I had to share that I literally, not the child, but the mattress, started to grip the mattress and just shake the mattress. Like, in my mind, I wasn't, again, not shout at my son, but just going, shut up, shut up,
Yep,
you know?
yep.
And
So you lose it.
I lost it. But then the self-flagellation after, the beat up of what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You need to check yourself in, buddy, because I don't want any harm
Yeah,
to
well,
happen.
you have my
But it
number
was,
now.
okay, this was 8 years ago. It was one incident. There was no harm to the child, right? It was just, but I can understand
Yes.
where you see people reach a tipping point in certain things, and I'm trying to come back to one for us to share our other moments to show that we're not all perfect.
You mentioned, Robert, just now, financial stress. I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest, apart from divorce and woman problem and all that kind of thing. I think financial stress. And you just sent me back there to COVID, boy, when the world shut down. Well, everything had shut down for me. And another thing you mentioned there too was, this too shall pass. And I remember getting up every morning, every single morning, like in the wee hours of the morning, when everybody is asleep, because you can't, I'm not going to show anybody, I'm not going to let my wife know or the children know, well, Daddy under some pressure. Because as far as they're concerned, it's moving slow. We real good. We rock back, place closed, no school, no work, rock back.
Happy times,
Yeah,
extended summer.
But it was getting real painful for me because everything in my line had shut down. Music, parties, everything in my line had shut down. And financial stress. And I used to get up every morning and I used to look up in the sky and say, God, boy, do something for me now, boy. Just do something for me now, boy. Please just do something for me now. And literally begging in the front yard because nobody ain't up there and I begging. And this too shall pass. And just like that, the dogs and the puppies that we love, the puppies start to make pups. And the pups then remember during COVID, everybody had a dog?
Yeah, everybody wanted a
Pups
dog.
and they start making puppies.
That's the hydroponics.
The pups and they started to make puppies. And I found a way. God presented a avenue because, and that's why I believe you had to be real strong and you had to truly believe and have some faith that, you know what, that He have some kind of control.
Yeah.
And when I beg and I beg and I beg and I literally talking Robert, I'm begging, the only thing happening to me is tears running on my face and I'm begging in the morning. And when them dogs start to make puppies and you're selling these puppies and this literally taking you through to get the groceries and pay bills because the bills never stop when you grow and you never stop eating. Apparently eating more because you're home.
Yeah.
And it started happening. That's when I know, you know what? He watching and He watching over you. And if you really go to Him and you really beg and you really say, and you had that faith and you say, yo, do what you do for me? Help me now.
So that connection to some kind of higher power, is really not to be taken for granted.
It is not. It's
our
not. You
culture.
had to have that faith, and I believe that because everybody will have challenges. You will have challenges every day. You will get to that challenge. But I always like to tell myself, today, me and the bosses might be at loggerheads. Today, me and she might be at loggerheads. Today, I and some situation might be happening. But it's for a reason to get me stronger for something. And like you mentioned, them kids and them, they're bawling and they're crying. but it's to make you realize that your responsibility and your duty is to be a father. And like Shaq say, I had to make sure and stand up. If me stand up, what gonna happen? Who's standing up for them? They're not able to stand up for themselves. You got to be able to be strong enough to stand up for you. And where you getting that strength? You got to summon that strength from somewhere.
Well, you know, there's without a test, there's no testimony. So, you know, let's start there. And I just want to clarify that, you know, after that incident and my own reflection into self and what is going on, I'm now
Stronger,
8 years
better.
later, solid.
Yeah.
I'm still realizing that even now when I look at what do I have the connection fully that I want with my son, it opens you up as well to counsel where you can now talk to other people. And by talking to other persons, people say, listen, all your son really wants, even if you're always busy, is your time.
Yes.
More than anything else, that is what they're going to remember. It's time that you spent with them. Not on your phone, not doing something halfway. That one track that we spoke about, zoning in and saying, when I dedicate that moment to play football or pickleball or take him hiking or whatever the case may be, it could be playing a game of Uno or Monopoly Deal. Am I spending time? That's what he's going to remember. And that in itself now allows me to be in a space that instead of alcohol or instead of even that moment, that's my pause because it gives me purpose.
Yeah.
And it make him better too, Robert. It make him better, it make him stronger because he knows that what I learned from my father that I had to be this particular way and I had to be stronger. So I'm not going to look for the alcohol. I'm not going to look for the drugs. I'm not going to be sidetracked in any way. You had to keep focused because Daddy was always a focus one.
Yeah, and Rob, not only, you know, because you've had that experience now, you can reach out to your partner. You know,
Well,
and this is what men need to start doing. Check on your partner.
I doubt her.
Reach out to your partner.
Well,
if you have a partner who have a newborn baby, you know, check him.
So one of the things, and you're right, sometimes like even, and I've spoken about this on the show a couple of times, with my father's death, you know, one of the regrets I had was, again, working on a production and not being there, not filming enough of the moments, not asking him certain questions. So a lot of what I try to do now is reach out to friends while their parents are still living and saying, hey, make this happen.
Make it happen.
Trust in me that make this happen. Even if you don't feel it, do it. Don't say I don't have the time or I'll do it next week or say I made that mistake. I said I will go this Saturday and the Friday he died. You know, so I'm saying that it is important to record those moments so that you can go back. And even if afterwards there's a misunderstanding, when they're dead, they're gone.
Yeah.
Right? And so that for me, for a lot of people could be a coping mechanism because the loss of a parent can also tip some people over the edge. But Keisha, as we're speaking about men and mental health, and I want to bring it back as well to even St. Anne's Hospital, to some of what you've seen and understand as to why 70% are men. Like, what are some of the reasons they're brought in there? Are they savior stories? Do they die there?
So St. Anne's Hospital currently have about 650 beds. About 400 of those persons live at St. Anne's Hospital. You know, it's not to say they can't function outside of the hospital, but that is not for this discussion. So there's a combination of acute wards, your admission wards, and then there are chronic wards, patients who will not leave the hospital.
As in ever.
There are locked wards and there are open wards. So there are locked wards, persons from the court, persons, who are aggressive and violent, people go specific places. So it's not to say when if you ever drive through the compound of St. Anne's and you see people walking around, you have to be scared for your life. St. Anne's Hospital, the compound of St. Anne's Hospital is actually the home for some people. But when we started, and Rishi was talking about that crazy mad person at the end of the spectrum, I want to let people know that the type of person we have now presenting to mental health services is not your typical mad person that we have in your head. It's people who, we don't like to use the normal term, but it's people like you and me, people who have a job, people who have a family, people who have reached a breaking point, people who do not have that support system around them, right? And some of the stories you hear are really heartbreaking stories of abandonment. We have quite a problem with drugs and alcohol. And the majority of young men, we admit, between 24 to 35 is drug-induced psychosis from marijuana.
I wanted to say that again because since marijuana was decriminalized, right, and plenty of people say, well, all right, we could use this thing now. Okay, it's a free country, people could do whatever they want, but understanding the other spectrum of it. Because we talk about coping, right? Taking a smoke every so often, or taking a drink,
which is a
anything.
norm now, take it for young people.
But so now that
smoking
I've
a
grown the
joint.
plant, it becomes now an addiction, a dependency, a coping mechanism, a escape, all those things.
But my
they are-
reaction
You've
to
seen
it,
an increase.
definitely,
in
there's been
Correct.
an increase, and there's some research going on with UWI and the Northwest at the moment, looking at 3 years pre-decriminalization versus 3 years post-decriminalization, and the admission rates as it pertains to drug-induced psychosis. But the majority of admission for men is drug-induced psychosis. Is drug-induced psychosis. And because, there's this
Explain what
thing called the
psychosis.
treatment gap. So the treatment gap is that time that's taken to access treatment. You find that it is more difficult to treat to get you back to the point where you were pre-admission.
If indeed it is
Because
possible.
as a young man, you might be experiencing your distress or whatever. You take a smoke and you start using it more and more as a means of coping, but it is also having another effect on you.
So this
Yeah.
drug-induced psychosis, because it's a very interesting topic, and probably we would love to have you back to talk about that specific aspect of it,
Yeah.
of marijuana, and the myths around marijuana, but also the effects that people aren't speaking about.
Yeah.
Because even in the decriminalization, it's always about that marijuana is this great thing.
Yeah.
And there's this dark side to it that nobody's speaking about in a public forum, or again, it could be mass media, but it's not reaching to the right people. But I want to, for intents of the show, if you're saying that you're seeing an increase in persons being treated or coming into St. Anne's Hospital or even the mental health services, what are some of the underlying things? What are some of the things that you're hearing that may have started that persons are using it to cope? It's not recreational. It's not like I'm just going down the islands and I want to be cool and I'm taking a blunt or smoking a joint, whatever the terms are now.
So some of the things are, studying university, not being able to cope with that. We have a lot of issues post-COVID, a lot of mental health issues post-COVID, persons who have not bounced back, persons who have lost their jobs. And I'm sure you've seen it, you've seen that as well. So there is generally an increase in anxiety and stress, and people are finding something to use. And I saw a couple of weeks on the newspapers, actually, a minister speaking about we need to develop some kind of mental health program for all these workers who are being laid off. All these CPAP workers. What's going to happen?
And men who will not
And
be
men who
able to
will not
provide.
There was
what
actually
is
one
the role on?
who had a story to tell.
Yeah.
So there's so much to unfold, men and mental health. And I
I
think
think definitely we need a part two.
we need
a part two
two.
because I feel, Robert, we need to touch specifically on men and suicide in our local context. Right?
That's a whole show in
That's
itself.
a whole show in
that
itself.
That one topic.
Because we have a murder-suicide statistic that is increasing in our country. And that's something that, we need to
And
kind of
I
take
have
apart.
some data for that too,
Yeah.
based on my observations.
So one thing, God willing, we will certainly have a part two to these topics, because again, there's so many break-off topics as we spoke about men and healthcare, men and suicide, and even the stats that show again, we people always talk about in domestic violence, there's always the stat, of course, the ratio of men versus women. Of course, women are recorded as higher, but then with suicide rates, 90% are men.
Yeah.
And that's because, of
Just
course,
can't handle the love triangle, boy. They
men
just
just,
can't
well, not just it's not just love triangle. It's for coping. You know, you may have what could be a beautiful relationship, but outside of that, what you're doing to maintain that relationship or the perception to maintain that relationship might tip you over. So, for example, in your relationship, you're going on holidays, you're providing for your kids, they're going to good schools, all of these different things, and then boom, you lose your job, and you no longer can do that in the fabric or what you perceive as what keeps that whole ecosystem going is now lost, and everyone's looking to you. But I really want, like, we only have so much time to
we
really
out of
have a
time already.
discussion. Correct. To have a brief go around, not just in your closing thoughts, but especially from you, Keisha, Dr. Keisha Lewis, to enlighten us as to what are someone in your field of study coping mechanisms that's one or two things that someone can take away. And we know that spirituality is one, but some of the things that you've seen actually work in your environment, and what services are available to persons, and
Shock
how
therapy.
easily it is to access.
Shock therapy.
Yes, there is.
Hear this one.
Serious, serious.
Yes, there is something called that. That
Because that's
is the
another material
extreme
you're just thinking,
end.
like, electrocute them.
There's something called electric convulsive therapy, yes, ECT. That is not practiced in Trinidad. But a couple of takeaway points for me: men should be more aware, some self-awareness of when things are becoming a bit too much to handle, and finding a balance. Find a balance, some time for self, finding a balance. And I just want to put a plug to say that you do not need a referral to access any psychiatric service in this country, public. It's a walk-in service. So mental health services does not equate St. Anne's Hospital. There are lots of services in the communities where you can find help, and help is available. There is the Ministry of Health's website, findcareTT.com, and, find a balance.
And one of the things, just to touch on what you just said with regards to St. Anne's Hospital, is that there's areas. There's the chronic ward, as you mentioned, and is it acute?
Yeah, chronic and acute.
So
we didn't even touch on, we actually have a children's ward at St. Anne's Hospital. We have 8 beds. We have, as young as 8 years old being admitted to the St. Anne's Hospital. So that could be part 3.
So, part 3. What are some of the things that you're doing as the GM of health services for the Northwest Regional Health Authority to continue to debunk some of these old myths, to get persons to understand that it's not just whether I have the courage to seek help and go into the hospital.
We at the Northwest have a lot of outreach programs. We have 3 mental health and wellness centers. One is located in Diego Martin, one is on Pembroke Street, and one is in Barataria. We have a lot of support groups going on there. You don't have to be, a member of the clinic to access those groups. There is a men's support group, there's women's support groups, there is bipolar support groups, there is bereavement and grief support groups, in terms of violence in this country, we have seen quite an increase in persons requiring that kind of grief support. So one of the other things we're doing is we have an initiative called the Workplace Wellness Initiative, where mental health services go into the workplace and set up shop, in a room where your staff can pass through, and we share information, where you can access local resources, who you can speak to, like a screening process for mental health. So you can email us mental.healthservices@nwrha.gov.tt for any more information.
I think we in the media too, Robert, should really and truly get hold of that particular information and
Yeah.
spread it, because in predominantly Indian radio, I mean Indian men, and I mean, don't take this as any kind of a way, but Indian men really and truly, we have this kind of pride about ourselves. Really and truly, we ain't going to get sick. We are talking about it. We will do
Certainly
the
going to
most
access
all on
some
our
help.
own. And really and truly, sometimes you need that help. You really need the help. And a lot of us out there still don't know how to access this information that is readily available. It have the internet, but all you know is Facebook, and all you know is
Yeah.
just the normal little handles that you go on. But we in the media really and truly should take an initiative to really and truly broadcast the help that is available out there, to let people know, well, hey, don't forget your pride. Deal
Yeah,
with the
agreed.
situation before it's too late, before you break.
And like when we started, when we were talking about, mental health being, somebody being crazy, somebody not being crazy, watch how we use our terms. Watch how we use our terms.
As you said that, before Johanse chimes in, the term women driving men mad, as we putting on both hats now,
Yeah,
as
it
a
real.
woman and as a doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe a message that you may have to women out there
Calm down.
with regards to
Calm down.
sometimes
Yeah,
we say I'm mad at a certain
don't
Allow
overthink
it.
it. Don't overthink it. Right? It's probably not what you think anyway.
Allow him. If you
Yeah.
need if
Give
you
him a
need to
chance.
take a
Give him a
moment,
chance.
Allow
Yeah,
it. Give him
yeah,
a chance.
yeah,
Give him a minute.
yeah.
Pat down, girl.
There's a whole next show here.
That's
next show.
right.
All right. And it's not only Indian men, right? It is more crazy to pretend something don't exist and you don't deal with it than to actually go and get help. And I'm saying this for people. So if you have a pain or you're feeling ill or you know you can't handle a situation, you pretend that it don't exist. That is madness.
Yeah.
That really is crazy behavior versus if you have a problem with finance, you seek an accountant. If you have a problem medically, you seek a doctor. If you have a problem mentally, you seek a psychologist. If my hair not looking good, I go buy a barber.
Yeah.
It have people to help you with what you need. So if you pretend something don't exist, for me, and realizing now at this age, it had nothing manly about that, Pretending something don't exist is actually a form of weakness instead of dealing with it. So strength as a man mean I see a problem, whether it is with myself, whether it is with my environment, and I seek the solution.
Yeah.
But somebody close to you, two hands, had to be able to tell you, hey, we should go and check yourself. So if you have that support system, in your wife at home, if you're fortunate enough to have that woman who would really hold your hand and tell you, hey, check yourself, Rishi, you're clicking, something wrong with you, you're twitching, something going wrong with you. You need to really and truly pay attention and listen to her sometimes too.
I agree with that. And I would even say, to be honest, most times, you don't need somebody to tell you something wrong.
Yeah.
Now, let me
That's
say,
awareness
I
is
just
what
give an
I'm
example.
talking
That's just a
about.
confirmation.
Let me
of the
say
game.
10 things
like
wrong.
we're going into our
Yeah.
part 2 and part 3. So
Right.
let's
Right.
bring it home.
Home, what I will end is the truth is the truth. The best form of have a high form of mental health is being honest about yourself. This is what's going on with me. Deal with it. And when you make up your mind to deal with it, you'll find everything that you need to do.
Just to piggyback on what you said there, you really, you always know. You always know whether you decide to deny that, but you always know when you come into that tipping point. And like Johan mentioned earlier, even when something is wrong, not wanting to go and get checked up, you know that sugar is bad for you, or this is bad for you, or you are the one that has taken on this that has now made yourself reach to this particular point. And it's that ownership, and it starts with ownership. But also, whether we use terms like mad, crazy, we learned today the word is mentally distressed. We're all going through it. Robert Williams said, be kind to everyone you meet because you never know what they're going through. And everyone is going through something. It's just how did they cope with that. And if you know men that we are not very open to communicating with others for whatever reason that may be, let's be that change. Let's reach out. Let's speak to our brothers. Let's notice certain things. Let's take, whether it be a phone call or just simply saying, instead of a drink, let's go and take a walk, or just sit. And persons will tend, that in itself might be the thing that they need just to have that pause. And if you find that pause isn't working for you, then please seek help. Have that discussion. I wouldn't like to say lock yourself away for a moment, but whatever it takes to get you to that point where you can really understand and remove the veil, where you can see once again or know to yourself, this too shall pass. It really will indeed work for you. Spiritual grounding has really worked for me to know that God is the boss and everyone else is just pretending. And as long as you root yourself in that spiritual grounding, I hear people say all the time, a higher power. The higher power is God. And to know that is to know yourself and to be powerful at all times. Men and mental health, a topic that continues all the time. I'm glad that once again we've used this forum to communicate and show that mental health isn't taboo. It simply is your state of being. It is the healthy state of your mental capacity and state, which could be
of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior in relation to your environment.
And really happy to have Dr. Keisha Lewis on board. If you do indeed decide to visit any of the mental health services, know you're doing what is necessary to be better. Johanse, Dr. Lewis, Rishi, a pleasure. Men and mental health.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Look Aid and Solomon's Bespoke.